Nick Fuentes, voice of reason. I saw this video and someone asked me if it was AI, and I'm like, honestly, I don't know anymore, because Nick Fuentes is like, I was challenging the Israel narrative on Charlie's assassin, and people said he was covering it up. So I agree with Nick Fuentes on this one, in that it is ridiculous to assume Israel did it, but it is weird that they blame it for everything, to the point where even Nick Fuentes, of all people, is saying, guys, chill out. But, I agree. I agree, Nick.
Alright, so if you haven't caught this one yet, Tim Pool's latest Timcast episode has him actually flipping the script for once on someone who he doesn't really like, which is Nick Fuentes. And he's kind of redeeming him by spotlighting this clip where Nick actually shuts down the wild conspiracy theories tying Charlie Kirk's tragic assassination to Israel. But Nick actually calls that claim baseless, and is actually trying to push his followers to take a breather and look at the real angle with the real far left extremists out there instead. And he's essentially saying that it's not always Mossad in these situations. Well, Tim Pool at least gives him the credit of high IQ anti-Semitism, at least giving Nick some credibility in his ability to pass out the low IQ people, muddying the waters to what actually happened to Charlie Kirk. And this is pretty significant, as Tim Pool's usually pegged as this mainstream Republican, centrist right guy, while Nick is, of course, Nick. And more mainstream pundits like Tim Pool and PBD, for example, still have not broke the firewall and having Nick Fuentes on in their respective shows. But it does look like now Nick is sort of having some leeway or lining up on the same page over Charlie Kirk's death with these mainstream pundits. And if you don't know, a lot of theories were exploding on Tyler Robinson, especially this apparent Mossad operation level assassination. You actually have Nick, out of all people, out there, and we all know what Nick says about Mossad in Israel, for example. And Nick's there actually denying this angle hard, actually, saying that the theory is absolutely nuts if you were to think that Charlie Kirk, literally their top soldier on the right wing, Israel supporter till he died, was assassinated by them. And apparently there's some grand concoction that they would find a way to actually slime him. It's just ludicrous. That's what Nick is trying to say.
Actually, Nick Fuentes, listen to this.
Time to wake up, guys. Some of this, I'll be the first one to say, the conspiratard schizo thing, it's getting a little out of control. And that's coming from me. I mean, it's like we are truly through the looking glass. When Charlie Kirk is assassinated, people blame Israel. I, who fought Charlie Kirk because he was pro-Israel, am being said to, or I'm being sad to be covering up that he was killed for this miraculous conversion. If Ben Shapiro was taken out next, and now, God forbid, would Israel be behind that too? I mean, that would be equally ridiculous. If it was Ben Shapiro on Wednesday, people would be saying, Israel did it. Shapiro was about to become a National Socialist. Like, what? It's crazy.
Nick Fuentes, voice of reason. I saw this video and someone asked me if it was AI, and I'm like, honestly, I don't know anymore, because Nick Fuentes is like, I was challenging the Israel narrative on Charlie's assassin, and people said he was covering it up. I did like a 46-minute breakdown on all of these stories where they're claiming that Charlie was fighting with donors, he felt blackmailed, and I'll give you the real simple version. Some of that seems to be half true. Like, there were donors who were concerned about the current state of support for Israel, and Charlie was moderate conservative, so he had similar views to many conservatives, which is, I don't know why we should be funding these foreign wars and getting dragged into it. However, I think it's very obvious to anybody who's ever watched anything from Charlie, who was extremely pro-Israel. So I agree with Nick Fuentes on this one, in that it is ridiculous to assume Israel did it. And I don't get the point. I mean, it's just deflecting from the obvious that far leftists who had a real motive that we've been warning about for so, like, don't walk away from solving the puzzle, okay? We've been complaining about the far left threat of violence. I have been threatened by the far left. I've never been threatened by Israel. I've never been threatened by groypers. It's always the far left. And so when a guy kills Charlie and the evidence suggests he's a leftist, there are people coming out blaming Israel, and I'm just like, by all means, rag on Israel all day, every day. I don't care. I care about it as much as I care about Burma. But it is weird that they blame it for everything, to the point where even Nick Fuentes, of all people, is saying, guys, chill out. But, I agree. I agree, Nick.
So the reason why this is so significant is that if you don't know the whole lore behind Tim Pool and Nick Fuentes, the relationship has definitely been rocky for a long time. And for Tim to actually give Nick some credit on this Charlie Kirk assassination take, it's the first time he's actually really eased up on their feud. And honestly, it might be wishful thinking, but honestly, this could possibly lead up to some collaboration in the way. I don't know if that will happen, but it'll be wild to see. But you can definitely see an opening happening. So again, the lore is really important here, as it's really important to see the actual wild trajectory of their encounters throughout the year. And while researching for this video, there has been also a slight anecdote in the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the whole drama afterwards, where Nick actually was expressing his appreciation for where Tim Pool actually defends him against this coordinated media slander campaign of blaming Tyler Robinson as being a groyper, which does highlight this sort of precursor moment of Tim Pool's leaf turning within the far-right spectrum previously, despite previous tensions, and particularly with Tim Pool, whom Nick Fuentes has criticized extensively in the past, and vice versa.
There are no, as much much as you can go to any Groyper or Nick Fuentes forum and hear them call me a Jew and a shill for Israel and make up lies about me, I've never been threatened by a Groyper. You know what the worst thing a Groyper has ever said to me? Debate Nick Fuentes. And I'm like, I don't know what I'd debate him on. I don't think we talk about the same things. That's it. Why don't you debate him? Ooh, Tim, you should debate. Oh, I'm so scared of debate. I'm not, in fact. And see, that's the lie that the left is pushing, right? The Groypers, more than anything, would want Charlie Kirk to debate Nick Fuentes. And they would clap and cheer. That's what they probably wanted more than anything. To get Nick Fuentes in front of Charlie Kirk with a big audience so that Nick Fuentes could debate and, in their views, establish their premise and why they're right. So no, the Groypers who beg and demand that you debate Nick are not going to go and kill someone. It makes no sense. None. Now, for me, we get threats all the time, and they're always from leftists. The Swannings, we have strong evidence that we know who did it, and they're leftists.
I did not have Tim Pool doing multiple debunk videos to defend Groypers from attack by the left on my bingo card. W Tim, I guess.
Dude, and that just goes to show. Tim Pool ran to my defense. Other liberals did as well. I appreciate their honesty. Matt Walsh did. Matt Walsh seemingly extended a truce. I don't know, though. He didn't say my name or anything, so I don't know if that applies to me, but constantly. And so for him to stick up for me like that, that was walking the walk. He said the right should stick together, and he's setting aside the feuds and grudges, and that's easy to say. And then he walked the walk, and he defended me. Truly, or at least my reputation against the attacks. And that showed a tremendous amount of magnanimity. That showed a tremendous amount of benevolence and charity and integrity. And not just because he did something nice for me, but it made me think very highly of him.
Anyways, this relationship, of course, hasn't always been through a rose-tinted lens. Because even before this whole situation, you can see clips of Tim Pool actually seething as normie friends were sending him Nick Fuentes reels on Instagram, despite not engaging with political content per se, which does show the wider reach Nick has gained since blowing up, especially after his Iran war coverage and the saga with Tucker. And I think at this point it does really show that it looks like he's broken containment, with Nick's clips and message being pushed out by his Groyper clippers and social media algorithms finally picking it up, although TikTok and Reels still continues to censor him a lot.
A video that my friend told me about, who is not political. This is a dude who does not engage in politics at all and knows nothing about it. And he said Instagram suggested a Nick Fuentes reel where Fuentes was saying everybody knows that the crime is coming from the black neighborhoods. Nobody wants to live there. He says it's irresponsible to bring your wife and child to black neighborhoods. And everybody knows when you talk about shootings and crime, you're talking about black people in black neighborhoods. That has millions of views, and people I know that, like, again, I'm stressing this, who don't engage in politics on Instagram, who are watching videos of Legos and Star Wars, got recommended that. That is crazy that Instagram is promoting that in their algorithm and that people are sharing it, and all the comments were like, Fuentes is right.
And you have before that Tim Pool and Elijah Schaffer, and you can actually see here Tim Pool is very uncomfortable and very, very much so distancing himself from Nick's foreign policy views, which does show a sort of strategic avoidance of direct confrontation.
All right, see, Uncle Sam is a fraud says, Tim, did you watch the greatest free show on earth last night? America First with I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Israel First with Nicholas J. Fuentes, big show. He does talk about Israel more than any other issue, doesn't he?
When are we gonna have the debate? I saw
what's the debate?
Well, I saw him say I said Alex Jones, Elijah Schaffer, and like I don't even know what the disagreement is really between you guys, but I mean like
that's what I'm asking. What am I supposed to debate?
Well, I think he made claims that like they're Israel first, right? I read the tweet.
It's an insult.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit demeaning, right? Like I mean, he does take attacks at you too, though. So I mean, you guys are both kind of like
my point is the people who think Israel is responsible for everything are they're the first thing that comes to their mind in terms of the problems of this country is Israel. They're Israel first. Like me, I'm concerned about our southern border. I'm concerned about fentanyl crossing the Canadian border. I'm concerned about the cartels in Mexico. And then there are people who literally talk about Israel all day. And I'm like, bro, America has problems. Israel is not the first on that list. We can go over the things we don't like about Israel. 100% agreed. But when you bypass literally our southern border, which is our first and foremost problem, 20 million illegal immigrants over the span of a couple years, flooding our labor market, flooding our hotels, and you're like, yeah, but Israel. I'm like, bro, are you serious? You are Israel first. You care more about Israel than the fact that New York, that Joe Biden brought in, I think the actual number is like 10 million over 4 years, considered to be one of the largest mass migrations in human history.
I think they believe that the Jews did that.
No, I honestly, because I've talked to both of you guys like pretty extensively about your views. I think you misunderstand each other, but also I don't think that's true with him because like I've never watched a full episode. Sounds really bad. I've never watched a full episode of this show or of his show. I've never watched a full episode of my own show. You don't end up watching your own stuff. But I've seen enough clips to like where I see him talking about Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel, the military-industrial complex being a huge issue in the era of Trump. And with you too, I think you don't get enough credit for being open and honest, where people won't even mention Israel or Zionist or or AIPAC or any of these words. You're not afraid to talk about them, despite maybe it could cause problems for monetization. conversation. So I think he has a real open opportunity to generate a lot of views and to say, if you're making these claims and he's saying that, he's saying something, being able to sit down together and discuss this, I feel like this is what people want.
Well,
And this is obviously in the backdrop of the whole campaign of Nick daring Tim Pool to have him on the pod, as obviously Tim Pool's podcast is one of the most popular shows on the right adjacent space, and totally having him would be intensely taboo for his kosher, controversial takes on the Timcast. And here's Nick egging Tim Pool on with a sort of jovial reverse psychology taunt that he wouldn't actually invite Nick on since Tim's too much of a chicken to actually have any sort of balls to expose his views on the normie mainstream right, which is Tim Pool's audience, which is what Nick is trying to basically convey.
Tim Pool loves to do this tough guy routine. You can't do that with me because you're afraid of having me on the show. You can raise your voice, you can get your beanie all up in a bunch and all that on Timcast with your sycophants, with your numbskull idiot sycophants that you have on your show. You can't play that game with me. You're afraid to have me on the show. I want Nick Fuentes to hear this. Yeah, as long as I'm not in the room. As long as I'm not in the room to address it. Big tough guy, big intelligent genius. I know the argument that's going to destroy Nick Fuentes just as long as he isn't in the room to respond. Just as long as he's thousands of miles away. I'm easy to find. You know how to reach me. If you want to humiliate me and defeat me in debate, hey, asshole, bring me on the show. Say it to my face. Come on my show. You're afraid of your precious YouTube channel. You're afraid of losing your mainstream platform access, which I lost years ago. Come on my show. Do it on Alex Jones. Do it on Zero Hedge. Do it on Elijah Schaefer. I mean, literally, name the time, name the place. You want me to hear it? Say it to my face, bitch. Say it to my face. Don't get all pressed on your show with all your sycophantic losers that you pay to sit there and agree with you and you talk over them. I mean, those people be impressed by anything. And this is the game that he's been doing this for years now. I want Nick Fuentes to hear this. Nick Fuentes isn't ready for this argument. Will you have him on the show? Will you debate him one-on-one, have a discussion? Your morning show, your evening show, on this other show. No, I can't do that because he's going to get my YouTube banned. No, I can't do that because he offended me when him and Ye got up and left. No, I can't do that because, his audience keeps asking for him and you're not supposed to do that. So, Tim, go fuck yourself. You were in a meeting with Netanyahu and nobody would even know that unless somebody leaked it. You got mad that you got exposed and found out. You met with the Prime Minister of Israel. You've lost your ability to say that you're impartial. I only care about America. Is that why you were meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and telling him about how anti-Semitism is created by Qatar? I mean, give me a break. You allow Daily Wire to use your facility or vice versa for your election night coverage in 2024 after you denied that you were going to get bought out by them. You took Russian money, so shut the fuck up. You are not impartial. You don't care about America. And by the way, you talk about Israel all the time. You just take the pro-Israel position because you're in the pocket for Israel. You're in the pocket for Israel because you're platformed on YouTube. And if you went too hard against Israel, they'd take that away. And everyone knows that. You're in the pocket for Israel because of your business dealings with Daily Wire, which, as we found out thanks to Candace Owens, is an Israel-controlled racket. They won't be in business with you. They won't have you as a host if you criticize Israel. And because you have met with the Prime Minister of Israel himself. So let's just cut the shit and let's just stop pretending that you're some Gen X skater bro who's a patriot and a truth teller and a conservative. You are a pawn of foreign intelligence. You took money from Tenet, which was funded by Russia. You're in bed with Daily Wire and you met with Netanyahu. You are not what you say you are. And by the way, the only reason you have an audience is because you're the only one left on YouTube. So let's cut the shit.
And there's more on this with this funny taunt that Nick gives, which he implies that Tim has actually bought off and paid by you-know-who. And that's why Nick can't get on the pod.
Sent $10. Tim Pool should take his beanie off and replace it with a kippah. What a joke this guy is. Thankfully, we have your show. Every other right-wing show is compromised.
Did you see this? Tim Pool met with Netanyahu. Tim Pool and Dave Rubin met with Bibi Netanyahu. Could you just die? Like Netanyahu, the head of Israel, and Tim Pool. And Tim Pool, for this fucking cocksucker for years. I should probably say it a different way for a clip. I don't want people to clip me saying cocksucker, but so let me just rephrase it. For years, Tim Pool said he wouldn't have me on his show because I'm not relevant. He said he wouldn't have me on his show because my fans keep asking me to have him to have me on the show. He said he wouldn't have me on the show because he's afraid that I'll say something that'll get them banned. For years, he's gone through how many different excuses has he cycled through why he won't have me on the show? Too many people are asking. Too many people are spamming the chat. Well, you're not in the news right now. Always an excuse. And now Tim Pool is meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel. I think we now know the reason. I think we now know the reason why Tim Pool won't talk to your guy here. Because he's kosher. Him and Dave Rubin are meeting with Netanyahu because they're in bed with Israel. You know, Dave Rubin's business partner at Locals, he met him at Hebrew University in Israel. Like, these guys are connected. So, and Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Daily Wire, they're all connected to Israel. It's just, I don't think anybody's even, I think everybody knows this at this point, but it's just unbelievable. And Tim Pool is telling Netanyahu, I think Qatar is funding all the this anti-Israel content on the internet beyond parody.
So you have that, and Tim Pool does actually argue back, calling Israel an obsession for him and the Groypers actually, where he frames actually criticizing Israel as a threat to US sovereignty as Israel first, which does seem ironic since given Tim Pool's own history of engaging with Israeli leadership, including a private meeting with Netanyahu, it's a sharp contrast to his public stance.
Well,
it could be a discussion.
He's also making the claim that basically you're bought out by Israel or by Jewish
It's Israel
interests.
first.
But would you not debate him on that claim?
What's the debate? I don't get money from Israel.
He was accusing you
Hide the
of
silver
meeting with
coins.
Netanyahu. And
I met with Netanyahu indeed, and Tucker Carlson met with the premier.
What did you guys talk about?
Netanyahu. There was a Chatham House meeting with like a dozen plus journalists at the Blair House, which is basically a White House guest house, and he was talking largely about Iran getting a nuclear weapon and trying to go to war with Israel and the United States.
I'm confused on that too, why he did that. But I think a lot of people want to know this because I'm not making any accusations because I think a lot of people are too conspiratorial and think that everything's like, some undercut, cooked background thing where people are, getting top-down orders from Israel, and that's really not what's happening.
Because they're Israel first. They're deranged.
No, well, listen, okay, we'll disagree on that, but I mean, that is pretty crazy to have a meeting with a world leader. Like, that's like, how do you get invited to that? Like, why is Netanyahu meeting with all of our right-wing influencers? Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but why would a foreign leader then want to meet with you because you have a big podcast in America? Like,
because he's advocating for U.S. support for their war with Iran.
So, but why would he talk to you to raise support?
It's called lobbying.
Well, what did he lobby? Like, can you say, or is it NDA?
Yeah, he was trying to convince a bunch of media personalities that the U.S. had to support Israel, and I would say 70% of the room told him to screw off.
What did you feel personally on that? Like, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think he was. In a manner of speaking, I mean, nobody literally said screw off, but there was a really funny moment where he's like, what does Iran say? They do not say death to Israel. They say death to America. I'm not supposed to quote him, so I'm paraphrasing, I guess. I don't know. He said that. And he goes, and what do you think happens when they get a nuclear weapon? After they will be stopped by us, but they will come for you.
No,
and then immediately someone goes, no, they won't. Just blurted out in the room. It was hilarious. And then he was like, yes, they will. And they're like, no, they won't. And then someone else goes, their nukes can't reach us. It was funny. But the idea that when Nick Fuentes says something like, Tim Pool is bought and paid for by Israel, that's because he's lying. Like, do you literally believe that Israel gave me cash money? The liberals claim that Russia gave me money. Lies. And the Israel First people claim that Israel gives me money. Stupid lies.
But other than that, you can see Tim Pool express his condolences to Nick after a gunman tried to enter his house last year, which barely got any media attention. And kudos to Tim Pool for actually sticking up to Nick back then, because you can clearly see an inkling of humanity, that even before all the taunts and jabs between them, because you could actually look past the politics and recognize what just happened was horrible.
Filed. This should be dropped, and it's ridiculous. I am not a fan of Nick Fuentes, but clearly, the dude, what did he do? He trolled on the internet. Mm-hmm. He said, "Your body, my choice." Yeah. So far away from being offensive and illegal, and look, the dude has said more offensive things in his life. Yeah. Many people say more. Taylor Lorenz.
Yeah.
Says substantially more offensive things.
And double down.
Fuentes starts getting death threats and gets doxxed because of this. These people are celebrating it. By all means, don't dox people, but you're allowed to insult and not like Nick Fuentes. And then, as the dude's getting death threats, and there's like apparently were a couple vehicles with people in them in front of his house. A woman walks up holding, apparently she's holding something, her phone, and Fuentes opens the door and pepper sprays her. He's getting charged for this. He's at his home minding his own business. Look, how many times have there been officers that have been deemed justified in shootings because someone was holding a cell phone and they didn't know if it was a weapon or not? Right. I'm not saying they should be justified, but if Nick Fuentes, all he did was pepper spray and shove somebody because they're walking up to his house
on his property, yeah.
On his property. Now, I certainly think there's an argument of, look, maybe you should call the police and back off because it's stupid to approach the door with pepper spray if you think someone might be trying to kill you. But the idea that he would get arrested, charged, and mugshotted over this, I think is stupid.
It's Illinois.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not surprised, because defending yourself is illegal in that state. Yeah. So I would say, like, if you live in Illinois, Nick, you shouldn't live in Illinois. This is crazy.
That's the big takeaway.
Anyway, to link back to the latest development to the law, we could obviously see the jabs and responses from both Nick and Tim Pool throughout the years. But we can now see since then with Tim Pool's latest episode, the tune is sort of being different, and he does seem to have some sort of realization that Nick does have some credibility with him.
Absolutely wild how Nick Fuentes came out as the voice of reason, saying, like, guys, come on, like, Israel didn't kill him.
I never thought it wasn't Israel would be a sentence that I heard come out of Nick Fuentes' mouth. But I mean, look, it does actually, look, there are people that are already saying Nick got the call. That's BS. But like, it does actually add to his credit, like gives him a modicum of credibility, because you're like, all right, well, then this makes me believe that even if I disagree with him about his takes about Israel, he's honest about them. He really does believe these things, because he's saying this particular case I don't think is Israel. So like, if he were just a grifter that was grifting off of anti-Israel sentiment, because there's a lot of people globally that are really anti-Israel, and you can make a lot of money and get a lot of followers by being anti-Israel. And if he was actually just a grifter and didn't actually at least believe the things that he said, why wouldn't he say, well, of course Israel was going after Charlie Kirk? Well, of course, it would probably satisfy a large portion of his less attached to reality followers.
So you guys know how I met with Netanyahu earlier this year, a few months ago.
Yeah.
And it was Chatham House rules, meaning we're not supposed to reveal anybody who was there. Nick Fuentes was there. That was a joke. Anyway, moving on. Unfortunately, now there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to be like, that proves it! And they're going to start tweeting at him, and they're going to say he got the call, and Tim Pool claimed he was there. And I'm like, I'm literally joking. Nick was not there.
Tim Pool outflanks everyone on the Israel issue.
So yeah, it's interesting to see the progression, and whether Tim Pool would actually have Nick on is probably too optimistic, but who knows. They still disagree a lot, but having him on to hash it out maybe would be something. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Tim Pool would ever host Nick Fuentes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm now posting more often, and I'm trying to get 1,000 subs so I can get monetized, so if you could, please subscribe. Peace.